All right, good morning, everyone. I'm back. All right, let's jump into it. All right, U.S. stocks, nice session yesterday. Kind of for the first time, really having a really solid push in a while. On the back of a few things, I think one of the biggest things was obviously the potential change in rhetoric in terms of relations to Syria, and saying that they wouldn't strike if they were to hand over their chemical weapons. I think that was a big boost to the market. I think the market's been quite worried about what's going to happen there. So we obviously saw a nice push higher on the back of that. We also had a nice session out of Asia on the back of a massive beat in Chinese exports. And Japanese quarter two GDP was revised higher. You can see there across the board we got a nice boost there. Japan was up 1.5%. Hong Kong up almost 1%. But just spread around across the board, reasonable day. We had Chinese stocks that got a boost from industrial production and retail sales data that beat estimates. And obviously China's been a big focal point as of late to see if we're going to kind of hang on. All the data seems to have really turned to the upside in China over the last kind of two and a half months. So I think it's going to be really important to see if that can continue to follow through. But there's been a little bit of a sentiment change there regarding that, and I think you've seen some of the industrial stocks react accordingly. All right. And a handful of earnings out this morning. We had Avenge that was a beat on headline earnings per share and a beat on revenue, but they're not paying any divvy. The expectation was for an 80-cent divvy. One comment was the 2-year order book is down 20% at $37.4 billion. FirstRand, I think, had really, really solid numbers. Came in at 277. Net income number was a small miss, but I think the most important thing, if you just look at some of the really the really important numbers, such as return on equity, things of that nature. I mean, they're so far above what the other banks are doing that I think they really should be trading at a higher multiple. So I think it's really important, and I think FirstRand will probably react well to that today, and I think the chart's looking bullish on that anyway. All right, we've got Steinhoff headline earnings per share as well. That are coming out a little bit later this afternoon. The guidance is at that they came out with the trading statement is at 3 Rand 88. Earnings expected to be 111 billion, and divvy per share expected to be at 82 cents. So keep an eye out for that a little bit later today. Then we had Amplats, which was cut to neutral versus buy at Citigroup, and then at the same time was raised to overweight versus neutral at JP Morgan. Nice little flip-flopper there from the two of the big ones. All right. We had Japan Tertiary Industry Index out a little bit better than expected overnight. Talked about that just now. Industrial production, retail sales better than expected. There in China, continuing that better than expected theme going on there. We have French industrial production in just a minute. We've got Italian quarter two GDP. Locally, we've got the current account balance. We've seen a nice little run up of the Rand over the last few sessions. Obviously, this could impact that today, so we expect it to be at 195.5 billion. So just watch that closely today. And then the big thing today is Obama. I think Obama has 6 press conferences today with regards to Syria. Obviously, the main one's going to be the address to the nation. So it's going to be really important to see what happens today. I think the markets will kind of be waiting on that the whole day as well. All right, let's jump into the maps. All right, first thing I wanted to have a look at is Mr. Price. Guys, forgive me if I'm re-showing certain things that the rudder showed over the last few days. I wasn't here, so I don't know if he's gone over any of these things. Anyway, I'll show Mr. Price here. I was looking at this yesterday. I actually bought a couple of these yesterday on this breakout through just below 128, call it 127.90. You can see there, this thing's also kind of setting up into a little bit of a head and shoulder pattern in the short term, potentially. You can see there. So, and I really think that that's obviously been broken already. So you can see there. Either way you look at it, I think the chart on Mr. Price is looking quite nice, and I would say the minimum price target would be up here around call it 132 in the near term. All right, let's look at First Rand, which obviously had earnings today, so that's going to be the most important thing today. It'll be more important than the technicals, but the technicals I think are going to support what I think will be the fundamental outcome today. You can see here, obviously, this breakout. We kind of this little same sort of thing, continuation pattern, looking nice to make a nice little break higher. The level was down here around 29.60, where we broke out and we came back and tested. Obviously, we're breaking out here. Call it 31.20. Last 2 days, we kind of bounced around there, and you can see, yesterday we did manage to get back above and close above that level. So I really think this thing could easily trade up to close to all-time highs in the next couple sessions. All right, Anglos. Let's have a look at Anglos. I'll show this locally, and I'll show it overseas. Why is that looking so different? Okay. Anyway, sorry. What I wanted to show here is just the Fibonacci retracement level. If you take from the top of this move down to the bottom, this bounce up, and we were really right at 61.8% retracement on the fibs. So that's that's a really important little level of retracement that we've had there. Typically, a good time to start fading stocks there. Not going to say that that's what's going to happen, but just watch that because it could be important. It's also kind of been battling to push through this 250 level over the past few sessions, so we're going to want to watch that closely. I'll show it in London as well. London, it's looking. I mean, the chart's generally still looking bullish there. But London here, we actually broke out in yesterday's session. You can see there, if I was shortening it up a little bit, how we did break out of this little continuation pattern we've seen from this rally off the lows. So I really think this thing could potentially move higher, could trade up to its 200-day in London, which is around 1660. So just watch this one closely. It's been kind of defying gravity for a little while and managing to make it higher day after day recently. All right, let's get MTN. I'm going to back out here a little bit and just show this. What I think is important here, this stock, it's really just been, such a, buy-in to pullbacks for, just since I can remember. We're coming into some trendline support. I went over this, was looking at this for a while with Rudder yesterday, and we were talking about how you can go back and you can look at a little bit longer term trend line if you pull it back to a 2-year, and then it obviously gets a lot flatter. But I think what's important about this, if we do jump back to the 1 year, is that we are at support on a 1 year. We are coming right, that support line's up nicely with a 200-day moving average, and I think there is some, 175. If you look at I'm just going to zoom really far forward. If you look at how many touches we had and how big of a support level that was when we pushed off of it to make it those all-time highs up there north of 200, I think we had 5 days in a row where we tested 175 and it couldn't break. So 175 is actually really important. Comes right in line with the 200-day moving average, which you can see up here at 175.86, and also on trendline support. So I think MTN is probably a nice little risk reward to have a nibble at these sort of levels. All right, Amplats. Let me back this out a little bit. I want to show a 2-year chart in Amplats. really right at trend line resistance on Amplats. And what's interesting about this is just how many times, over the last week and a half, 2 weeks, we've really just kind of been failing this trend line the whole time, and actually it's kind of slowly but surely, actually grinding a little bit lower and just kind of managing to hang below the trend line. If you back it all the way out to a 5-year, you can actually just take this and stretch it all the way up, and you can see how that trend line remains totally intact, going all the way back to 2010. So I think this is actually a really, really big level on Amplats, and I think it's gonna battle to get north of this, especially with the rand starting to put on some strength. So watch this one closely. It could start to fail here, and I hadn't even looked at this, but we'll just have a quick gander at what it looks like on the fibs. Yeah, same sort of thing. I mean, it really seems like it's kind of failing up here around the 61.8% retracement level. So I mean, I think a few things working against Amplats potentially here around these levels. Maybe a nice little pullback coming soon in Amplats. All right, and the last one I want to show here is Aspen. Aspen, you can see here. Really kind of pushing up against this 240 level. I think our best close was at 240.33. You can see there we've tested this a couple times. Hasn't really been able to break out, but if we get north of 240 on a closing basis, I really like this thing. I think we can make a nice push higher, possibly $20-25 to the upside in Aspen if we can get above 240. And that's it for today, guys. Thanks a lot.